The first time Claire saw Evelyn, she thought death had come to collect her early. No one should look that flawless standing under flickering streetlights in a town where nothing ever happened. No one should have eyes that seemed older than history itself, eyes that pinned you, studied you, and yet begged silently, please don't look away. Claire didn't look away. She never could. Evelyn was a witch who had lived for centuries, but on that rainy night in a forgotten corner of Vermont, she appeared more like a lonely traveler than some creature born of myths. Her coat was soaked through, but her skin seemed untouched by the cold drizzle. Claire had been walking home from her late shift at the diner, exhausted and annoyed, when she found herself stopping in the middle of the road, watching the stranger with the kind of curiosity that could ruin a life. "Are you lost?" Claire asked, her voice a little sharper than she intended. Evelyn tilted her head, a small, knowing smile tugging at her lips. "You could say that." Her voice carried centuries of stories, each syllable heavy yet graceful. That was how it began. For someone who had wandered through countless lifetimes, Evelyn had learned one thing: mortals were fleeting, fragile, and devastating. They burned brightly, and then they were gone, leaving her behind with nothing but echoes. She had promised herself not to fall again. But the blonde with tired eyes and a sarcastic mouth had undone centuries of restraint in minutes. Claire, 25, stuck in a town she despised, working shifts that never paid enough, had always thought love was just another scam invented to sell wedding rings and reality TV shows. But Evelyn wasn't like anyone she'd ever met. Evelyn made her laugh when she wanted to cry. Evelyn made her heart ache with questions she couldn't answer. And Evelyn made her believe in magic. The nights that followed blurred into a secret world the two of them carved out. Long drives on empty highways where Evelyn told her stories that sounded too absurd to be true, but were delivered with a conviction that stripped away doubt. Afternoons in Claire's cramped apartment, where Evelyn would sit by the window, running her fingers absent-mindedly over Claire's books, as though remembering 100 lifetimes where she'd read them before. And then there were the silences. Oh, the silences between them could drown oceans. In those quiet moments, Claire swore she could feel Evelyn's heartbeat tremble, as though the witch was terrified not of the world, not of fire or pitchforks or centuries of hunters, but of Claire herself. It should have been simple. Girl meets girl. Girl falls for girl. Girl kisses girl, and they live happily ever after. But Evelyn was not just a girl. She was the weight of history disguised in human skin, cursed by time, chased by enemies who knew what she was, and haunted by a fear she couldn't name. Claire began to notice it. The way Evelyn flinched at sirens in the distance. The way she never slept. The way her eyes glazed over whenever Claire mentioned a future marriage, children, or even just moving to a bigger city. It was as if Evelyn had learned not to dream. One night, lying on the couch with her head in Claire's lap, Evelyn whispered, "Do you ever think about how fragile all this is?" Claire smirked, running her fingers through Evelyn's hair. "My cheap couch? Yeah, it's holding on by a miracle." But Evelyn didn't laugh. She looked up, eyes shining with something that hurt to witness. "No. Us." Claire's smile faltered. "Why would you say that?" "Because one day," Evelyn swallowed hard, "one day you'll realize I don't belong here. With you. In this time. In this life." The room grew cold with that confession, though Claire didn't know then that Evelyn had buried lovers in every century, had kissed women beneath gallows, had held hands at war fronts, had whispered love into ears that would never hear again. Evelyn had carried centuries of loss, each heartbreak another stone dragging her under. But Claire didn't care about centuries. She cared about now. "Evelyn," she said softly, lifting the witch's chin so their eyes met, "I don't care if you're 200 or 2,000 years old. You're here. With me. And I'm not letting you go." Evelyn's breath caught, and for the first time in a very long time, she let herself believe. She let herself hope. But love with a witch was never safe. Strange things began happening in town. Candles flared when Evelyn walked past. Shadows clung to corners too tightly. People whispered about the new stranger who never seemed to age. And then there was the night Claire found a mark scorched into her front Duran ancient sigil, warning Evelyn that someone had found her. The witch hunters hadn't died with history. They had adapted. They wore suits now, carried guns instead of torches, and hunted quietly, efficiently. And they had come for Evelyn. Claire didn't know about the centuries of running. She didn't know that Evelyn had lost entire families, entire loves because of them. All Claire knew was that the woman she loved was in danger and she wasn't about to let history repeat itself. "I'm not leaving you," Claire said, grabbing Evelyn's hand even as Evelyn tried to push her away. "You don't understand," Evelyn pleaded, her voice breaking. "If they see us together, they'll kill you too. They always kill the ones I love." Claire tightened her grip. "Then let's make this time different." It was madness. A mortal girl and a witch standing against centuries of bloodshed. But love has always been the most dangerous kind of madness. And for the first time in her long, weary existence, Evelyn thought maybe, just maybe this madness was worth it. The first time the hunters appeared, they didn't come with fire or chanting crowds. They came with quiet footsteps on wet pavement and black SUVs that looked far too polished for a town like theirs. Claire noticed them before Evelyn did. It was late, close to midnight, and Claire was closing the blinds in her tiny apartment when she saw two men leaning against a car across the street. They weren't smoking. They weren't talking. They weren't even looking at their phones. They were just watching. Her stomach twisted. "Evelyn," she whispered, stepping into the kitchen where the witch was brewing tea as if centuries of running hadn't taught her the danger of standing still. "Don't freak out, but there are men outside." Evelyn's hands froze mid-motion. The spoon clattered against the cup, her knuckles pale as bone. She didn't ask who. She didn't ask what they looked like. She just closed her eyes and said, "They found me." Claire felt the floor drop beneath her. "Then what do we do?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Evelyn turned to her, eyes blazing like green fire. "You run." "No," Claire said instantly. "Yes," Evelyn snapped, grabbing Claire's arm so tightly it almost hurt. "You don't understand. If you stay with me, they'll use you against me. They'll torture you, kill you, and I'll—" Her voice cracked, her centuries of composure crumbling in an instant. "I can't lose you too." Claire's throat tightened. She wanted to say the sensible thing, the safe thing. But she'd never been sensible with Evelyn. She'd never wanted safe. She wanted her. So she shook her head. "I'm not leaving you. If they're coming, then they'll have to deal with both of us." Evelyn's eyes searched hers desperately, like a drowning woman searching for a shore that might not exist. And Claire, God help her, stood firm. That night they didn't sleep. Evelyn whispered incantations in a language Claire didn't recognize, chalking protective symbols across the windowsills. Candles burned until the wax bled onto the wooden floor. Claire sat with her back against the door, clutching a baseball bat, knowing it was ridiculous but needing to hold something, anything. When dawn came, the men were gone. But Evelyn knew better than to believe it was over. They tried to live normally after that. Claire went to work at the diner. Evelyn stayed hidden, slipping in and out like a shadow. But the tension was unbearable. Claire caught herself glancing over her shoulder every few minutes. Customers noticed her distraction. Her manager pulled her aside, asking if everything was okay. Claire just forced a smile and lied. But when she came home each night, Evelyn was waiting, sometimes curled up with a book, sometimes staring out the window like she was expecting the world to burn. And Claire realized that whatever was happening, whatever danger crept closer each day, she would choose this. She would choose Evelyn again and again. One evening, after a particularly long shift, Claire walked into her apartment to find Evelyn sitting cross-legged on the floor, candles arranged around her like a broken clock. "What are you doing?" Claire asked softly. Evelyn didn't look up. "Trying to make this place invisible. At least for a little while." Claire put her bag down and sat across from her. "Does it work?" Evelyn's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Sometimes. Magic is stubborn. It doesn't always give what you want. Sometimes it gives what you need." Claire studied her in the candlelight. Evelyn's face was calm, but her eyes were endless oceans of sorrow. Claire reached out and touched her hand. "And what do you need, Evelyn?" The witch's breath hitched, as if the question itself was dangerous. "You," she whispered. Claire leaned in before she could stop herself. She kissed her. It wasn't their first kiss, but it was the first that felt like a promise. A reckless, desperate, terrifying promise. 2 weeks passed. The hunters didn't make a move, but Evelyn knew they were circling. The air felt heavier. Birds went silent when she walked outside. And Claire noticed that her own dreams had grown strange flashes of fire, whispers in languages she didn't know, shadows curling around Evelyn's body as though reminding her she wasn't human. Not really. One night, Claire woke to find Evelyn sitting at the edge of the bed, her back bare, candlelight flickering against scars that stretched like constellations across her skin. They weren't knife scars. They weren't burns. They were older, stranger, glowing faintly with some kind of silver light. Claire sat up, her chest tightening. "What happened to you?" Evelyn turned, startled, clutching the blanket to cover herself. But Claire reached out gently, fingers brushing the strange marks. "Don't hide from me," she whispered. Evelyn's throat worked as she swallowed. "These are the price of survival. Every century, every spell I cast to keep running, every life I couldn't save. It leaves a mark." Claire wanted to cry. She wanted to scream at the universe for doing this to her, for carving pain into someone who only ever seemed to want love. Instead, she kissed Evelyn's shoulder softly. "They're beautiful," she whispered. Evelyn trembled. No one's ever said that before. Then everyone else was an idiot. For the first time in centuries, Evelyn laughed. Really laughed. And for a moment the weight of time seemed lighter. But fate, as always, was cruel. It happened on a Thursday. Claire was leaving the diner late, her apron stuffed into her bag, when the two men from the SUV appeared again. Only this time they weren't watching. They were waiting. "Claire Rivers?" one of them asked, his voice polite, too polite. Claire froze. "Who's asking?" The second man smiled faintly. "We're looking for your friend." Her pulse hammered. "Don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I think you do," the first said smoothly. "Dark hair. Green eyes. Doesn't quite belong here." His gaze sharpened. "She's dangerous, Claire. She's not what you think." Claire forced a laugh. "You sound like every paranoid ex-boyfriend in this town." The second man stepped closer. "If you care about your life, you'll tell us where she is." Something inside Claire snapped. She squared her shoulders and glared at them. "If you care about your life, you'll leave her the hell alone." The men exchanged a look. One of them smirked. "So be it." They didn't touch her. Not yet. But as they walked away, Claire knew the message was clear. When she got home, Evelyn was waiting by the window, tense as a coiled spring. "They spoke to you," she said, reading Claire's expression instantly. "Yes," Claire admitted. "But I didn't say anything." Evelyn's jaw clenched. "You shouldn't have even looked at them." "What was I supposed to do? Run?" "Yes." Evelyn's voice rose, sharp with fear. "Claire, you don't understand. If they can't get to me, they'll go through you. That's what they do." "Then let them try," Claire snapped back, surprising even herself. "I'm not afraid of them." Evelyn's voice broke. "But I am." The silence that followed was unbearable. Claire reached for her, but Evelyn stepped back. For the first time, Claire realized just how deeply Evelyn believed she was cursed, believed that anyone who loved her was doomed. And Claire knew she had to prove her wrong. The breaking point came 3 nights later. Claire woke in the middle of the night to the sound of glass shattering. She bolted upright, her heart hammering. Evelyn was already on her feet, chanting words that burned the air. The door exploded inward. 2 hunters stormed inside, guns raised. Claire barely had time to scream before Evelyn flung her arm, and the men were thrown back against the wall by an invisible force. The air crackled, thick with power. Claire could hardly breathe. "Run!" Evelyn shouted, eyes blazing with unearthly light. But Claire didn't run. She grabbed the bat she kept by the bed and swung it at one of the hunters as he staggered up. The crack echoed through the apartment. Evelyn turned, stunned, even as the other hunter fired. The bullet stopped inches from her chest, suspended in the air like a drop of water caught in time. With a flick of her wrist, it melted into nothing. The hunters scrambled, retreating, but Evelyn didn't chase them. She stood trembling, power humming through her veins, eyes wide with terror. Claire dropped the bat, her hands shaking. "They're not going to stop, are they?" "No," Evelyn whispered, her voice hollow. "They never do." Claire took her hands, forcing her to look at her. "Then we fight. Together." Evelyn shook her head violently. "You'll die." "Then I'll die loving you," Claire said fiercely. Evelyn's breath caught. For a moment the centuries melted away. She wasn't a witch, wasn't cursed. She was just a woman loved so fiercely it terrified her. And she kissed Claire like the world was ending. They fled that same night. Claire hadn't packed much, just a duffel bag of clothes and a handful of books, but Evelyn insisted they couldn't stay. The hunters had broken through the wards, and that meant her protections were failing. Every second they lingered was a risk. The road stretched endless before them, headlights carving tunnels through the darkness. Claire drove while Evelyn sat rigid in the passenger seat, her gaze locked on the shadows beyond the glass. "You've done this before, haven't you?" Claire asked quietly, her hands tight on the wheel. Evelyn didn't answer at first. Then softly, "Too many times." Claire's throat tightened. "Running." "Yes. Running, hiding, losing everything I thought I could hold on to." Evelyn turned to her, eyes glimmering. "That's why I didn't want this. Didn't want you. Because it always ends the same way." Claire's grip tightened. "It doesn't have to." But Evelyn only shook her head, a sad, weary smile on her lips. They drove until the sun rose. By the time they pulled into a small motel off a deserted highway in upstate New York, Claire could barely keep her eyes open. The room smelled of mildew and cigarette smoke, but it was shelter. Evelyn drew protective symbols on the door with chalk, muttering incantations until the air vibrated faintly. When Claire collapsed onto the bed, Evelyn sat beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Sleep," she whispered. "I'll keep watch." Claire caught her hand. "You need rest too." "I'll be fine." But Claire knew she wouldn't. Evelyn hadn't been fine for centuries. The days blurred. They moved from town to town, never staying longer than a night. Claire learned the rhythm of fear, the way Evelyn's eyes darted at every unfamiliar sound, the way she traced protective marks on every surface, the way she woke gasping from dreams she never explained. And yet, in between the fear there were moments. Moments when they sat in diners at 3 a.m., sharing pancakes while Evelyn teased her about drowning them in syrup. Moments when they pulled over on deserted backroads just to watch the stars, Claire leaning against Evelyn's shoulder, while the witch whispered constellations in languages long dead. Moments when Claire caught her smiling, really smiling, as though she had forgotten the centuries pressing down on her. It was in those moments Claire knew she was falling deeper than she had ever imagined possible. And she also knew she would never let Evelyn face this alone. But the hunters were relentless. One evening as they left a small grocery store, Claire noticed a man leaning against a car across the lot, watching them. His suit was too sharp, his eyes too cold. She nudged Evelyn, and Evelyn's entire body went rigid. "We need to leave. Now." They ran. The man followed. By the time they reached their car, 3 more had appeared. Claire's pulse thundered in her ears as she fumbled with the keys, but Evelyn pushed her aside, lifting her hands. The air crackled, and suddenly a wall of flame erupted between them and the hunters. "Drive!" Evelyn shouted, shoving Claire toward the driver's side. Claire didn't hesitate. The car roared to life and they sped off, the fire shrinking in the rearview mirror. But as the smoke cleared, Claire saw one of the hunters watching them calmly, phone to his ear, as if the flames hadn't even fazed him. "They're not scared of you," she whispered. "No," Evelyn said grimly. "They're not." That night, Evelyn finally told her the truth. They were in another motel, the room dim, curtains drawn tight. Claire sat cross-legged on the bed, staring at her with that stubborn, unyielding gaze that made Evelyn feel both terrified and alive. "Tell me everything," Claire demanded. "No more secrets." Evelyn hesitated. She had buried her past for so long. But Claire deserved to know the weight she carried. So she began. She told her of the village where she had been born, centuries ago, when people still believed in curses whispered by the wind. She told her of the gift she had inherited, the power that had marked her as different, dangerous. She told her of the first time she was hunted, tied to a stake, flames licking her skin until she tore herself free with a scream that cracked the heavens. She told her of the centuries that followed off kings who sought her power, of lovers who betrayed her, of women she had cherished who were torn from her arms by blades and fire. She told her of the curse she believed she carried, the curse that doomed anyone who dared love her. And when she finished, she looked at Claire with eyes full of despair. "That's who I am. A monster who brings ruin. That's what you chose." Claire's hands shook, but not from fear. She reached out and took Evelyn's face between her palms. "You're not a monster. You're a survivor. And if anyone tries to take you from me, they'll have to kill me first." Evelyn's breath broke. Tears slipped down her cheeks, silent and endless. For the first time in centuries, someone hadn't recoiled. Someone hadn't run. Claire kissed her, fiercely, desperately, as though to burn the words into her soul. And for a moment Evelyn believed. But belief could not stop what was coming. The hunters grew bolder. One morning as they left a gas station, Claire noticed the same black SUV parked 2 rows over. Another night, Evelyn woke to the sound of footsteps outside their window. It was only a matter of time. They decided to stop running. "We can't keep living like this," Claire said, her voice steady even though her hands trembled. "We have to fight." Evelyn shook her head. "You don't know what you're asking." "I know exactly what I'm asking," Claire shot back. "I'm asking you to stop carrying this alone. You've spent centuries running, Evelyn. Let me stand with you." Evelyn's chest ached with the force of her love and her fear. She wanted to say no. She wanted to protect her. But when she looked at Claire, her stubborn, unbreakable Claire, she realized there was no stopping her. So she nodded. Together they prepared. Evelyn taught Claire the simplest words, small protections she could carry with her. Claire practiced them diligently, her tongue stumbling over the strange syllables until she finally mastered them. Evelyn gathered herbs, salts, stones, anything she could find to strengthen their defenses. And then one night the hunters came. It was in a deserted barn on the outskirts of a small town. They had chosen it deliberately, away from innocence, away from prying eyes. Evelyn stood in the center, chalking symbols on the dirt floor, while Claire lit candles around the perimeter. When the first SUV pulled up, Evelyn's body went cold. She could feel them before she saw them, their hatred, sharp and unyielding, pressing in on her like knives. Claire grabbed her hand. "Together," she whispered. Evelyn squeezed back. "Together." The doors burst open. Men in suits poured in, guns raised, eyes hard. Their leader stepped forward, tall, expressionless, his voice carrying like steel. "Evelyn Blackthorne." "Witch. Abomination. Your time is over." Evelyn lifted her chin, power thrumming through her veins. "I've heard that before." The barn erupted into chaos. Bullets flew, but Evelyn's magic twisted the air, slowing them, melting them mid-flight. Claire shouted the words Evelyn had taught her, and the symbols on the ground flared with light, forcing the hunters back. But there were too many. One broke through the circle, grabbing Claire by the arm and yanking her back. She screamed, struggling as Evelyn whirled, her eyes blazing with unholy fire. "Let her go," Evelyn roared, and the man was thrown across the barn, slamming into the wall with a sickening crack. Claire stumbled, breathless but alive. Evelyn caught her, pulling her close, her hands trembling. "Are you hurt?" "No," Claire gasped. "But they're not stopping." Evelyn turned back, fury burning in her chest. She raised her hands, chanting words that shook the ground itself. The air exploded with light, and hunters were thrown back like rag dolls. But as the power surged, Evelyn felt the toll it was taking. Her body ached, her scars burning. Centuries of survival had left her strong, but even she had limits. The leader stepped forward through the chaos, untouched, his eyes fixed on her. "You can't save her. You never save them. They always die, Evelyn. That's your curse." Evelyn's heart cracked. For a moment doubt clawed at her. And in that moment, one of the hunters raised his gun at Claire. The shot rang out. Evelyn moved without thinking. The bullet hit her instead. She staggered breathless, the world tilting. Claire screamed, catching her as she fell. Blood spread across her shirt, dark and heavy. "No," Claire sobbed. "No, no, no, stay with me. You can't leave me." Evelyn's hand trembled as she touched Claire's face. "I told you. They always take the ones I love." "Not this time," Claire said fiercely, pressing her hands against the wound. "I'm not letting you go. Do you hear me? I'm not letting you go." Tears blurred Evelyn's vision. She wanted to believe. God, she wanted to believe. And as the hunters closed in, Claire lifted her head, fury blazing in her eyes. "You're wrong," she spat at them. "She's not cursed. She's not a monster. She's mine. And I will burn this world down before I let you take her." Something inside her broke free. The symbols on the floor ignited, flames roaring to life. The hunters screamed as the fire consumed them, driving them back. Claire didn't know how she was doing it. She didn't care. All she knew was that she would protect Evelyn with everything she had, even if it killed her. And Evelyn, bleeding, broken but still alive, saw her, really saw her. Claire was not fragile. She was not doomed. She was fire. And for the first time in centuries, Evelyn believed that maybe, just maybe, love could save her. The barn smelled of ash and blood. Claire knelt in the dirt, Evelyn's body trembling in her arms, the witch's breath shallow and uneven. Around them, the last of the hunters screamed as the flames swallowed them, their voices fading into silence. When it was over, there was nothing left but smoke and shadows. Claire pressed her forehead against Evelyn's. "Stay with me. Please. I can't lose you." Evelyn's eyes fluttered open, green fading to dull gray. "I'm so tired," she whispered. "So many centuries. Maybe it's time to rest." "No," Claire said fiercely. "Not like this. Not here." Her tears dripped onto Evelyn's cheek. "You told me magic doesn't always give what you want, but sometimes it gives what you need. Right now I need you. Do you hear me? I need you." Evelyn's lips curved faintly, brokenly. "Stubborn. Mortal." Claire closed her eyes, desperate. She remembered the words Evelyn had taught her, the syllables that burned her tongue. She didn't know if it would work. She didn't know if mortals could even wield that kind of power. But she had no choice. Her voice cracked as she whispered the spell, her heart pounding in rhythm with every syllable. The air trembled. The earth seemed to hold its breath. Light spread beneath them, soft and golden, wrapping around Evelyn like a cocoon. The bleeding slowed. The ragged gasp steadied. Evelyn's body glowed faintly, as though the centuries carved into her skin were peeling away, layer by layer. Claire felt her strength draining, but she kept going. She poured every ounce of herself into the words, into Evelyn, into the love that had grown wild and unstoppable inside her. When the light faded, Evelyn lay still. For one agonizing moment, Claire thought she had failed. Her chest cracked open with grief. She sobbed, holding her tighter, whispering broken pleas. Then Evelyn breathed. Not a shallow dying gasp. A real breath. Full. Steady. Alive. Her eyes opened, glowing bright emerald, brighter than Claire had ever seen. She blinked up at her, stunned. "What? What did you do?" Claire laughed through her tears, trembling. I think I just saved you." Evelyn lifted a shaking hand to Claire's face. "No one's ever done that before. They all tried to save me. And died." "Well," Claire said, pressing her lips to Evelyn's palm, "maybe they didn't love you enough." Evelyn let out a weak, incredulous laugh. "You ridiculous, impossible girl." "You're ridiculous, impossible girl," Claire corrected, her voice breaking. And then Evelyn kissed her. Not the kiss of desperation, not the kiss of fear, but the kiss of a woman reborn. A woman who had finally allowed herself to believe she was worthy of being loved. The fire burned the barn to the ground. By the time dawn came, there was nothing left for the hunters to find. Claire and Evelyn walked away, hand in hand, exhausted but alive. For once, Evelyn didn't look over her shoulder. For once, she wasn't running. They settled in a small town on the coast of Maine, where the sea stretched endless and wild, and no one asked questions. Claire found work at a local bookstore, while Evelyn spent her days tending a garden that seemed to bloom brighter under her touch. The nightmares didn't vanish overnight. Evelyn still woke sometimes with a cry, centuries of loss crashing down on her. But Claire was always there, holding her, whispering that she wasn't alone anymore. And slowly the scars began to heal. One evening, months later, they sat on the porch of their small rented house, the ocean whispering in the distance. Claire leaned against Evelyn's shoulder, sipping tea, while Evelyn traced idle patterns on her hand. "Do you ever think about the future?" Claire asked suddenly. Evelyn stiffened. The future had always been a dangerous thought for her. Futures had a way of being stolen. But then she looked at Claire, the woman who had fought hunters, who had dragged her back from the edge of death, who had loved her without fear. And for the first time, Evelyn let herself dream. "Yes," she said softly. "With you." Claire smiled, tears prickling her eyes. She turned and kissed her, the kind of kiss that promised forever. The years passed gently. The hunters did not return, not in any way that mattered. Perhaps they had been broken that night in the barn, or perhaps Evelyn's new life made her harder to find. Whatever the reason, peace lingered like a fragile gift, and Evelyn learned to live in it. Claire grew older. Lines touched her face, her hair softened with streaks of silver. Evelyn, unchanged, watched the years pass with a quiet ache. But Claire never let her spiral into guilt. "Don't you dare mourn me while I'm still here," she would say, swatting Evelyn's arm playfully. "You're stuck with me until my very last breath, and that's not happening anytime soon." And Evelyn would laugh and kiss her and let herself believe. Because love, she finally realized, was not measured in centuries. It was measured in moments. In laughter over burnt pancakes. In long walks by the sea. In hands clasped beneath the covers on cold nights. It was measured in now. On their 10th anniversary, Claire surprised Evelyn with a small silver ring. It wasn't extravagant. It wasn't even new, just something she had found in an antique shop. But when she slipped it onto Evelyn's finger, her voice trembling, Evelyn cried. "I don't need forever," Claire whispered. "I just need you to promise me today. And tomorrow. And the day after that. As long as we get." Evelyn kissed her ring, her tears wetting Claire's hand. "I promise. Always." And though she had lived centuries, Evelyn knew she had never meant any vow more than she meant this one. Time did what time always does. Claire's hair turned white. Her steps slowed. Evelyn stayed the same, watching with a mixture of awe and grief as the woman she loved grew old beside her. But Claire never let her despair. One quiet night, as they lay in bed listening to the sea, Claire whispered, "Don't cry for me when I go. Promise me that. Promise me you'll keep living. Keep loving. That's how you'll honor me." Evelyn clutched her hand, silent tears spilling down her cheeks. "I can't imagine this world without you." "You don't have to," Claire murmured, kissing her knuckles. "Because I'll always be here. In the garden you planted. In the books we read. In the way you laugh. Love doesn't vanish, Evelyn. It just changes shape." Evelyn pressed her face to Claire's shoulder, memorizing the rhythm of her heartbeat. She didn't answer because she couldn't. But deep down she knew Claire was right. And when the day finally came, Evelyn held her until the very last breath. Claire's face was peaceful, her lips curved in the faintest smile, as though she were simply drifting into a dream. Evelyn kissed her, whispering the words she had never stopped saying. "I love you." The house was quiet. The world was cruel. But Evelyn was not alone. Because love had changed her. Because for the first time in centuries, she knew she had been loved fully, completely, without fear. And though grief clawed at her, Evelyn stood. She walked to the garden they had built together. She touched the flowers blooming under the moonlight. And she remembered Claire's words. Love doesn't vanish. It just changes shape. So Evelyn lived. She carried Claire in every breath, every laugh, every sunrise. And though the centuries stretched before her once more, they no longer felt empty. Because Claire had given her the one thing she had chased for lifetimes. Not immortality, not power, but the courage to love. And the courage to be loved in return. Evelyn Blackthorne, the witch who had lived for centuries, finally understood. All she had ever wanted was love. And she had found it. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.